You wake up after 7 or 8 hours in bed and still feel tired. Your knees feel tighter when you stand. The stairs seem steeper than they used to. A small cut takes longer to heal. The weight around your waist appears faster and leaves slower. Your skin looks duller. Names slip your mind for a moment. Energy fades by mid-afternoon, even on the days you did everything right. Many people in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s assume this is simply age catching up. But very often, it is not age alone. It is the silent gap between how your body was designed to repair itself and how modern eating habits repeatedly interrupt that repair process. Every day, your cells face damage. Stress hormones rise, blood sugar spikes, processed foods trigger inflammation. Oxidative stress builds like rust on metal. Deep inside the nucleus of your cells, tiny injuries can accumulate in your DNA. You don't feel DNA damage directly. You feel the aftermath. Fatigue that lingers, slower recovery, a metabolism that seems less cooperative, less resilience under stress, faster visible aging. And here is what most people never hear. There is one traditional Japanese food habit, simple, affordable, and easy to repeat, that may help nudge the body back toward repair mode in just days. Not through magic, through biology. I'm Dr. Gunter, and for decades, I've worked with adults who come into the clinic saying some version of the same thing. I don't feel like myself anymore. They tell me they're more tired than they should be. Their joints ache longer after activity. Weight is easier to gain and harder to lose. Inflammation seems constant. Recovery is slower. Focus is duller. They feel older than the number on their driver's license. And naturally, many arrive looking for a dramatic solution. They ask about hormone resets, expensive supplement stacks, detox programs, miracle anti-aging formulas, or some shortcut that can undo years of strain in a few weeks. I understand the desire. When you feel your vitality slipping, you want something powerful and immediate. But after many years of practice, I can tell you this. Some of the most meaningful changes I've seen did not begin with extreme interventions. They began with ordinary daily habits, done consistently, long enough for biology to respond. That is one reason I've always paid close attention to cultures with strong patterns of longevity and healthier aging, including Japan. Not because genetics explains everything, it doesn't, but because lifestyle design matters, meal timing matters, food quality matters, social rhythms matter, repetition matters. No single culture has all the answers, but some traditions preserve biological wisdom modern societies have forgotten. Today, I want to show you one of those habits. It's simple enough to start immediately, inexpensive enough for nearly anyone, and supported by mechanisms inside the body that influence inflammation, metabolic health, and cellular repair in ways most people never realize. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging is that it happens mainly because years pass. Time matters, of course, but the calendar is only part of the story. What often determines how fast we age is the combination of accumulated biological stress and how well the body can repair the damage that stress creates. Think of your body like a city. Every day, that city faces weather, traffic, friction, pollution, and constant use. Roads crack, pipes wear down, buildings need maintenance. Wear and tear is not a failure. It is normal life. What matters is whether repair crews are active, organized, and properly supplied. The same is true inside you. Every day, proteins can become damaged and need to be recycled. Mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside your cells, can lose efficiency and need renewal. DNA experiences countless micro-injuries that must be corrected. Inflammation can rise or settle depending on the signals you send. Cells are constantly deciding whether to focus on repair or switch into defense mode. Now look at how many modern mornings begin. A sugary pastry and sweet coffee on an empty system. No real nutrients. High stress hormones from poor sleep and rushing out the door, or skipping food entirely, then becoming ravenous later and overeating at night. To the body, those are mixed messages. Energy now, nutrients later, stress first, recovery later, fuel incoming but no building materials. Compare that with a more traditional Japanese-style first meal pattern, often lighter but nutrient-dense. savory rather than sugary, fermented rather than ultra-processed, balanced rather than extreme, designed to steady energy instead of spike it. That is not merely breakfast, it is metabolic signaling. Your cells are listening all day long. Food is information. Timing is information. Consistency is information. And when those signals become clear and supportive, the body often responds in ways that surprise people. To understand why one daily food habit can matter so much, you need to see the four systems working behind the scenes. The first is your DNA repair crew. Think of DNA as the master blueprint library for your body. Every cell depends on those instructions, but daily life creates wear, stress, pollution, excess sugar, poor sleep, inflammation, even normal metabolism. Tiny errors and breaks can happen constantly. That sounds alarming until you realize the body is built for this. You carry specialized repair enzymes whose job is to patrol, detect damage, and patch mistakes before they become larger problems. But repair requires resources. Those crews need energy, minerals, amino acids, antioxidants, and a stable internal environment. If nutrition is poor and the system is under strain, repairs may become slower or less efficient. The second system is your mitochondria. These are the power plants inside your cells, producing ATP, the usable energy currency your body runs on. But mitochondria do more than make energy. They help regulate inflammation, stress responses, and signals that tell cells when to renew themselves. When they are repeatedly overloaded by erratic eating, excess calories, and unstable glucose spikes, they can become less efficient and generate more oxidative stress, like a smokier engine burning dirtier fuel. The third system is inflammation. Inflammation is not the enemy, it is your fire alarm system. If you cut your finger or fight an infection, inflammation helps protect and heal you. The problem is when the alarm never fully turns off. Low-grade chronic inflammation can quietly damage tissues, worsen insulin resistance, strain joints, cloud thinking, and accelerate visible aging over time. The fourth system is circadian rhythm, your biological clock. Your cells keep time. Hormones rise and fall on schedule. Digestion follows rhythms. Insulin sensitivity is often stronger earlier in the day. Repair pathways become more active at certain times, especially when the body trusts its routine. Chaotic late-night eating can disrupt those signals. Consistent earlier meals often support them. Now here's where it becomes powerful. These systems do not operate separately. They talk to each other all day. When your first meal is balanced and timed well, blood sugar tends to stay steadier. Mitochondria can produce energy more cleanly. Inflammatory burden often drops. Repair pathways receive raw materials they can use, and your circadian rhythm gets a clearer anchor signal. One meal does not change everything, but one repeated signal can begin changing many things at once. Now, let's look at why this traditional pattern can have such a broad effect inside the body. First, oxidative stress. Every time your body produces energy, tiny reactive molecules are created. You can think of them as sparks from normal metabolism. Stress, smoking, pollution, poor diet, and sleep loss can increase those sparks dramatically. A manageable amount is normal. Too many can begin damaging cell membranes, proteins, and even DNA. This is where many Japanese staple foods become interesting. Green tea, matcha, seaweed, vegetables, and soy foods contain polyphenols and antioxidant compounds that help the body manage excess oxidative stress. Green tea, for example, contains EGCG, a compound studied for its relationship to cellular resilience pathways and healthier stress responses. Important distinction: antioxidants are not magic shields. They do not make damage impossible. They help restore balance. Second, the gut ecosystem. Foods like natto, miso, and traditional pickled vegetables provide fermented compounds and, in some cases, beneficial microbes or byproducts that support the gut environment. Your microbiome is not just about digestion. It communicates with immunity, metabolism, and even brain chemistry. When gut diversity improves, inflammation markers may improve, nutrient absorption can improve, and hunger signaling often becomes steadier. A healthy gut is like a well-governed city. Systems cooperate, traffic flows, problems are contained. A damaged gut feels more like disorder. Natto is especially notable because fermentation enhances nutrients and it provides vitamin K2 linked to bone and cardiovascular support. Third, blood sugar stability. Many modern breakfasts create a sharp glucose rise followed by a crash. That often leads to hunger, irritability, cravings, and greater insulin demand later. Excess sugar can also contribute to glycation, where sugars attach to proteins and accelerate wear, like stickiness that stiffens tissues over time. A savory meal with protein, fiber, healthy fats, and moderate rice portions often creates a steadier curve. Steadier energy means the body spends less time firefighting. Fourth, nutrient sensing repair pathways. Your cells monitor abundance and scarcity constantly. Systems such as AMPK help improve energy efficiency, while SIRT1 is associated with stress resistance and healthy aging biology. When meals are moderate, nutrient-dense, and timed well, these pathways may receive more favorable signals than they do during constant grazing and overeating. Finally, mitochondria need raw materials. Fish such as sardines or salmon provide omega-3 fats, selenium, B vitamins, protein, and structural nutrients that support cell membranes, neurotransmitters, and mitochondrial performance. That is why many adults over 40 notice clearer thinking and steadier energy when replacing pastries with real food. And this is the key principle. No single ingredient creates the result. It is the pattern that changes the biology. I've seen this play out many times in real life. One patient, a 52-year-old woman, came in frustrated and discouraged. She told me she felt as if she had aged overnight. Mornings were heavy and slow. By mid-afternoon, she was desperate for sugar or caffeine. Her waistline had been gradually expanding, even though she didn't feel she was eating excessively. Mentally, she felt foggy and less sharp than she used to. Her morning routine was common, either skipping breakfast entirely or grabbing sweet cereal and coffee, then pushing through the day until cravings hit hard later. We changed very little at first. Instead of chasing a complicated diet, we rebuilt the first meal. She began having a small bowl of miso soup, eggs or leftover fish for protein, green tea instead of sweetened drinks, a modest portion of rice, and a 10-minute walk after eating. That was it. Within 2 weeks, she reported something many people notice before weight loss ever begins: steadier energy. The afternoon cravings dropped dramatically. Her focus improved at work, and she no longer felt like she needed to rescue herself with snacks. Within 2 months, her waistline had started to move in the right direction. Her fasting glucose and triglycerides improved, and she said something I still remember: "I feel like my body is cooperating again." That phrase matters, because when daily signals become healthier, the body often stops feeling like an opponent and starts responding like an ally. Now, it's important to separate excitement from evidence. When researchers study populations that more closely follow traditional Japanese dietary patterns, they often observe favorable outcomes related to longevity, cardiovascular health, metabolic function, and healthier aging overall. That does not mean every individual eats perfectly or that one country holds a secret formula. It means recurring patterns appear worth paying attention to. Fermented foods have also drawn significant scientific interest. Studies have linked them with improvements in microbiome diversity, digestive function, and markers related to inflammation and metabolic health. Since the gut influences immunity and energy regulation, that connection is biologically plausible. Green tea is another example. Observational research has associated regular intake with healthier aging markers, cardiovascular support, and cognitive resilience. Compounds such as catechins, including EGCG, are often studied for their role in oxidative stress balance and cellular signaling. Meal timing matters as well. Research on earlier eating patterns suggests potential benefits for insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, and circadian alignment compared with chaotic late-night eating schedules. And omega-3 rich fish have long been associated with cardiovascular support, brain health, and lower inflammatory burden in many studies. Now, here is the honest part. These findings are associations, trends, and supportive mechanisms. They do not prove that one breakfast alone repairs DNA overnight, reverses aging instantly, or guarantees the same result for everyone. Biology is more complex than headlines. But when multiple lines of evidence point in the same direction, food quality, meal timing, inflammation control, metabolic stability, and nutrient density, that is where practical wisdom often lives. Credibility comes from nuance, and nuance usually beats hype. Now let's translate all of this into something practical you can actually apply. Think of it as a simple Japanese repair breakfast framework, rather than a strict diet. Within the first 1 to 2 hours after waking, or as your first meal if you naturally practice fasting, you build a plate that follows a clear structure. Start with a protein source. This could be eggs, natto, tofu, sardines, or salmon. Protein is not just for muscles. It provides amino acids your body uses for repair, enzymes, and cellular maintenance. Next, add a warm, supportive base. Miso soup or a simple vegetable broth works here. Warm liquids tend to be easier on digestion and help signal a gentle transition into metabolic activity rather than a shock to the system. Then include plant compounds. This is where seaweed, leafy greens, or traditional pickled vegetables come in. These provide fiber, minerals, and bioactive compounds that support gut and inflammatory balance. After that, include a smart carbohydrate portion, not excessive, just enough to provide stable energy. A small serving of rice is traditional, though oats can be used depending on culture and preference. For beverage choice, green tea or matcha fits well here. It provides hydration along with polyphenols that support oxidative balance. And there is one simple addition that multiplies the effect: a 10-minute walk after eating. This helps glucose regulation, supports circulation, and gently activates metabolic processes without stress. Now, consistency is where most people misunderstand this. You do not need perfection. In fact, 5 days per week of this pattern is far more powerful than doing it flawlessly for 2 days and abandoning it. And there are a few key mistakes to avoid. A sugary pastry paired only with coffee sets up a spike and crash pattern. Oversized portions can overwhelm digestion and glucose control. Late-night overeating disrupts circadian repair signaling. And perhaps most importantly, expecting instant transformation leads to disappointment. This works through repetition, not intensity. Now it's important to set realistic expectations, because when people finally start improving their daily signals, one of two things usually happens. They either expect nothing to change, or they expect everything to change overnight. Neither is accurate. Biology adapts in layers. In the first 3 to 7 days, most people don't notice dramatic transformation, but they do notice something subtle yet important. Mornings feel slightly steadier. That heavy, sluggish startup delay begins to ease. Energy crashes become less intense. Digestion feels more predictable. And satiety improves, meaning you don't feel as driven by sudden hunger spikes. By the 3 to 4 week mark, the pattern becomes clearer. Energy begins to follow a more stable rhythm instead of sharp peaks and drops. Cravings, especially for sugar or quick snacks, often reduce. Some people notice mild changes in body composition, not because of restriction, but because metabolic signaling becomes more stable. Focus and mental clarity also tend to improve as the brain is no longer constantly reacting to glucose instability. At 2 to 3 months, the changes become more structural. The routine feels natural rather than forced. Metabolic markers in many people begin to reflect improved regulation, though this varies individually. Resilience improves, meaning the body handles stress, food, and fatigue with less disruption. And importantly, many people describe a subjective feeling of being biologically younger, not just lighter or leaner. But the key principle is this: repair biology is cumulative. Your cells are not responding to a single meal, a single day, or even a single week. They respond to patterns repeated over time. And when those patterns consistently support repair instead of overload, the system gradually shifts its baseline. Before anyone applies this, it's important to keep the interpretation grounded and responsible. This approach is not a treatment, and it is not a cure for any medical condition. It is a discussion of dietary patterns and biological mechanisms that may support general metabolic and cellular health over time. Individuals with certain health conditions need to personalize these ideas carefully. For example, people with kidney disease may need to closely monitor protein intake and electrolyte balance. Those with thyroid conditions may need guidance on soy foods, since individual responses can vary. Anyone with soy allergies obviously must avoid foods like tofu or natto altogether. People managing diabetes, especially those on medication or insulin, should not make sudden changes to carbohydrate timing or portion sizes without clinical supervision, since even healthy meals can influence glucose and medication needs. Those with sodium restrictions need to be cautious with miso soup and fermented foods, as these can contain significant salt levels depending on preparation. And for individuals with sensitive digestive systems, fermented foods should be introduced slowly rather than in large amounts to avoid discomfort. Rice portions are another example where personalization matters. Some individuals may do better with smaller amounts or alternative carbohydrates depending on activity level, insulin sensitivity, and overall metabolic health. If fish is not available or not suitable for cultural or personal reasons, other protein sources such as eggs, legumes, poultry, or plant-based proteins can still fit within the same framework. The key idea is this: the principles matter more than rigid cultural replication. What we are aiming for is not perfection. It is consistency, nutrient quality, metabolic stability, and a daily pattern that supports the body's natural repair systems within your individual health context. When you step back and look at everything together, the important realization is surprisingly simple. The secret was never one exotic food, one superfood, or one perfect recipe. It was never about trying to hack biology with a single ingredient. It is something much more fundamental. Your first meal of the day can either create internal chaos or it can quietly support repair. That distinction matters more than most people realize. A traditional Japanese-style approach works not because it is mystical or extreme, but because it brings several key biological signals together in a consistent way. Nutrient density that actually feeds cellular processes, moderate portions that avoid overwhelming glucose control, anti-inflammatory compounds from plants and fish, fermentation that supports the gut ecosystem, and timing that aligns more naturally with the body's internal clock. None of these elements are powerful in isolation. Their strength comes from combination and repetition. And when you zoom out, aging itself starts to look different. It is not simply a linear decline written in years. It is an ongoing negotiation happening every single day between damage and repair, between stress and recovery, between overload and restoration. And your body is constantly responding to the signals you give it through sleep, movement, and especially food. That means something very important. Every morning, you are effectively casting a vote, not for perfection, not for immortality, not for unrealistic expectations, but for resilience, for steadier energy, for slower breakdown, for stronger repair capacity over time. And when those votes are repeated consistently, they begin to shape the direction of how you age, not in theory, but in lived experience. As we come to the end, there is one simple question worth reflecting on. What is my first meal teaching my body each day? Because whether we realize it or not, that first choice sets a biological tone. It influences how steady your energy feels, how strong your cravings become, how clear your mind stays, and how efficiently your body moves through its repair cycles. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. Start small and stay consistent. Try applying this kind of structured, balanced first meal approach for the next 14 days. Not perfectly, but consistently enough to observe what changes. Pay attention to your mornings. Notice your energy stability. Watch how often cravings show up. Observe your mood, your focus, and how your body recovers from daily stress. Those signals tell you more than any theory ever could, and I'd be interested to hear your experience as well. What do you currently eat first thing in the morning, and how does it make you feel afterward? If you appreciate this kind of clear, evidence based explanation of health, where science is translated into practical daily decisions, then stay connected and continue learning with me, Dr. Gunter. Take care of the signals you give your body, and it often responds in ways that are quietly profound.